Welcome to another edition of Good Karma Wrestling. Gang's back together. I'm Gabe Neitzel from ESPN Milwaukee. With me, as always, from ESPN in West Palm, we have Brian Rowitz. And check him out, ESPN 1000 in Chicago, Jonathan Hood. All right, gentlemen, a lot of things to unpack from Money in the Bank over the weekend, but quite possibly one of the biggest things that happened was we got a surprise appearance from John Cena. He shows up and gives a kind of confusing announcement that he clarifies, got very cocky during a press conference, then got some questions he didn't want to get. We can unpack that all as we go. But more importantly, he announced that he is going to be retiring from WWE. But much like Mariano Rivera, he is doing a retirement tour. He is going to be wrestling all throughout the course of 2025. WrestleMania, despite the way he made it seem, is not going to be his last date. He is going to have 35 to 40 dates, kind of wrestling all throughout the course of the calendar year of 2025. So as we stand here, and maybe he starts, before the end of the year and starts the retirement tour then, who knows? Still very ambiguous. Who are some of those opponents we want to see? But more importantly, who do we want to see Cena wrestle at his last WrestleMania?
Opponents. Well, the way WWE is going, guys, it could go from CM Punk to Drew McIntyre to Jey Uso. Because it's 35 to 40 matches, here's one thing we're going to know. He's going to be on TV a lot if it's really 35 to 40. Because how many PLEs do they do a year? 13?
Something like that, yeah.
14?
And also, we're in July, as he announces that it'll be all of 25. So this is a year-and-a-half retirement tour.
So I would say that there's going to be some John Cena on the road and some on TV. And so, ultimately, it's Roman Reigns that we've seen, but I just kind of feel like CM Punk and John Cena would be a great matchup to see one more time.
Well, second question: who wrestles more in 25, Punk or Cena?
Cena. Okay. Next. Let's keep him going.
So
that's
bet
an easy
online.
Question.
All right, bet online. The betting favorite for Mania for his Mania opponent is Randy Orton right now. And I feel like that makes the most sense.
I don't know if it makes sense. I guess at some point, we get Cena, Orton. I don't know if it's WrestleMania. I don't know. Given the way that Ric Flair has been kind of separating himself, or the way that WWE's been distancing themselves from Ric Flair, I would not be shocked if we see John Cena get one final run, not as the WWE Universal Champion or whatever championship currently Cody is holding, but I think he gets a World Heavyweight Championship run that gets him that 17th championship. So now you can have the legitimate claim that Michael Cole likes to say of him being the greatest of all time. I think we're going to get that. I don't think we get that at WrestleMania. If he's going to be wrestling this much, I think we maybe get a championship run maybe closer towards the end. Maybe he wins it at SummerSlam and it's a quick run for him towards the end on the way out the door. And he puts, again, this would be way booking in advance, but it'd be nice to see him put over somebody like Braun Breaker on his way out the door as his last act. He's the heavyweight champion. Breaker beats him, and that's how Cena goes out on his back. Again, that's way off in the distance. So I think Orton happens. Maybe, I guess, if Orton has nothing better to do at Mania, we can do it at Mania, but I don't know storyline-wise. Storyline-wise, I don't know what you do for Cena and Punk other than, hey, nostalgic match, because these two made magic a bunch. I don't know if we get a bunch of that or if we get a bunch of things that actually make sense in storyline.
Well, I agree with you about him getting another title run, but I think Mania would be the spot for that. And are you 100% sure it's not Cody? Because Cody's not going to be in the big picture. It's going to be Roman Rock. You're going to have bloodline stuff. We've talked about that before. What if it's Cody Cena for the title and Cena's big moment is at Mania breaking the record?
I think that WWE can learn from what's happening with Bryan Danielson in AEW. I'm not suggesting for John Cena to bleed all over the place every show, but I am suggesting that while Cena is...
Let's face it, that's Mox's fault, all right? Mox has just been a bad influence in the BCC. He's just a bad influence on Bryan Danielson and the Blood.
Opening segment.
What I would suggest is for John Cena to put a lot of guys over as he goes out the door. That's my suggestion.
But he's been doing that for the past how many years at this point? Does that even work anymore?
Well, yeah, it does. You are beating someone. You're beating a 16-time World Heavyweight Champion that people still respect.
What has it done for Theory?
Well, what has Theory done for Theory?
And is Solo that much better for it? Like, I just feel like it's just sort of done now.
Solo.
I think so. I think Solo, when you put up the resume, especially when Cena's around now, Solo has pinned John Cena and Cody Rhodes after this past week. Like, it adds to the resume if it's like a graphic that you want to throw up to continue to legitimize this new version of the bloodline. Like, in the moment, it was shocking. Like, I didn't think it was going to happen. I didn't think Solo was going to beat him. But I think that starts, and I think you can easily weave that into storyline of Solo. Once I beat John Cena, it gave me all the confidence to be this new member of the bloodline. Like, it's something you can easily weave in there to give it more meaning now.
All I'm saying is that with Bryan Danielson, he's winning some and losing some. And I think Cena could do that. I don't need to see Cena win another heavyweight championship or a title. I don't think so, because his legacy is set. It's just a goodbye tour to all the cities he went to. It's more than just what he does in ring. It's just a goodbye to all the cities that he's been to when he was in WWE full time. That's what I think.
Yeah, I think with all of the, it feels like he's going to get another championship run. They've got two of them. I would be shocked if they let Cody take the pin for Cena, Brian. Like, that would be shocking because, again, you're trying to still establish, I don't think you're still trying to, but Cody is this big guy. And then to have somebody from the past come and pin him just, oh, by the way, I guess John Cena is that guy. I don't see that one happening. I see it being more for this World Heavyweight Championship. Although, who knows? Maybe they have long-term plans for that because they burned through the Money in the Bank, cash in. Because whatever's going to happen there, I think they...
If we assume Gunther's got that title, like Cena's not beating him, I do think there's something to the fact that he mentioned the Rumble and Elimination Chamber, which are ultimately paths to Mania. So I could see him winning one of those to get to Mania and ultimately challenge for a title in Vegas.
I'm good with, if he wins the Royal Rumble, I'm going to be pissed, man. I am going to be so pissed off if he wins the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, because ultimately this is a nostalgia act. Here's what I don't know. With this thing with John Cena, does this mean he's back full time, guys? Or does this mean that he'll be in and out of the company? See, that's what I don't know. Is he going to have a dedicated year to be able to finish out his time at WWE, or is he going to do movies, TV shows, and come back every now and then? I don't know the answer to that.
I mean, 30 to 45 feels like a full year.
But also, like, the stuff isn't going to stop that he's doing. Like, he's involved in some pretty important franchises. Like, the DC thing that he's doing, I think he's shooting right now, season 2. Like, he's going to probably have to be shooting season 3. Like, Max is going to want that. Warner Brothers Discovery is going to want to put that out there. He's got other things. My guess is he's going to float in and out. My guess is it's going to be very similar to what we saw from The Rock, where he's going to be making pretty frequent, maybe miss a few here and there, appearances early in the season through WrestleMania. Maybe there's a break leading to Money in the Bank, and then he kind of has a push towards the end. But I think it's going to be maybe cut into thirds. That first third of the year he's here, second third of the year he's off doing his Hollywood stuff, and then he closes out strong.
See, Brian, that's why I don't want him to have a championship. I think in the Triple H era, I think we're done with this, hey, he's a champion, but you don't see him for another 3 months. We're done with the Brock and the Roman.
Sure.
I think that's the reason why. Unless Cena, like I said, with an 8 to 12 week program through a couple of PLEs, if he's going to be on TV consistently, as heavyweight champion or a champion, I'm totally fine with that. But if it's inconsistent, I can't deal with that. I don't.
Gabe mentioned Rock. What about that? Round 3.
He's not going to be champion, right?
No, not as champion. Just round 3. Now they're big movie stars, even more so than the last time around. No?
Nah, I'm out. Look, I think I only need 2 more Rock matches, which, by the way, it's funny that, because Rock kind of gets criticized a lot, and I understand it, especially after the way the documentary comes out last Wednesday, and everyone's kind of poking holes in some of the things that Dwayne is saying. And like Dwayne clearly has a big ego, but he's not doing a damn retirement tour. Like we got 2 more Dwayne matches. Like we've got 2 more Dwayne matches, and I think that's it. We get him versus Cody and him versus Roman. And I think that's it. And he's going to, go to the Hall of Fame and do all those different things. But like, we're not going to do a damn retirement tour for The Rock, are we? Like, this is so weird. I don't know. I don't know what to do with this because it's just like unprecedented in the wrestling space. Again, we've seen it with David Ortiz, and we've seen it with Michael Jordan and Mariano Rivera. We've seen these retirement tours in other sports, but like, I don't think we've seen a retirement tour like this. I mean, it may be, but again, Ric Flair even came back. Like when they did the whole stipulation of once Ric Flair loses, he's gotta, he has to retire, and then HBK beats him at WrestleMania. But then Ric Flair eventually came back because everybody comes back to professional wrestling.
I mean,
like, nobody's actually taken one retirement that stick.
Right. With that regard, I wouldn't rule out that it's Cena Flair for the title at Mania.
You know what?
What? No?
Just turn your camera off.
That's how you break the record.
That's amazing. By the way, we will not rule out Rock and Cena. That's why the good Lord made Crown Jewel. So, I mean,
that's true. That's true.
There's a way to get that done, even if it's one of these tag team matches, Gabe, where it's like, hey, it's Cena Rock involved, but then there's younger or difference makers in the WWE that's involved in the match. 6-man tag team. Somehow you can get Rock and Cena, not one-on-one. Nobody wants to see that. But I'm saying, like, in a tag team situation, people want to see that magic again at some point. It's part of the tour. It's part of the nostalgia of John Cena. What I'm saying is that it's cool that Cena's going to come back. It's cool that he's going to be making some of the rounds again. But as far as him being a champion, like beating Cody Rhodes, hell, even beating Damian Priest, I don't think that's necessary for me to enjoy Cena again.
I'm curious to
look, I agree with you. Like, I'm going to enjoy this no matter what. I'm just saying I think he gets one.
Yeah. And I'm curious to see how, his style, how the 5 moves of doom, works in this newer WWE. Like, him versus Jacob Fatu, I don't know if that works.
I don't think Jacob knows the script for that. I don't think he did. I don't know.
I think it could probably. Well, I'm trying to think because bloodline matches, like Roman Reigns matches, it's not like he had all these different moves, but also you had 1,000 different ways to interfere in those matches, which aren't necessarily Cena matches. So,
man,
but we know Cena can go, man. We know Cena can go. Again, one of the best matches I've ever seen him do was that Raw match against Punk.
Mm-hmm.
Man, think about it. It's Chad Gable. It's Jey Uso. It's Sami Zayn. It's Damian Priest. It's Drew McIntyre. The Bloodline. Roman again. There's so many wrestlers that Cena could take on. I think it all would be great. It'd be a great experience for a lot of these guys to take on one of the all-time greats for WWE. And again, for me, guys, it's an asterisk because it's the sports entertainment kind of era. It's a time where they move the championship around so often. But I got to give Cena credit for his consistency, staying healthy for the most part, and just being a good soldier through some really bad creative.
Yep.
He was at a time, the reason why he got booed is because wrestling was not cool a lot when Cena was in there. And he was the face of not cool in WWE because of Vince's creative. It wasn't because of Cena. It's just because they didn't have any imagination. And when they didn't have any imagination, give Cena credit. He was finding a way through promos and through his action to try to keep it as relevant as possible. But wrestling was not cool a lot of his tenure in WWE. It was not.
JBL tweeted over the weekend, imagine having to follow the Attitude Era and carry the company in a G-rated era. It's the hardest thing ever asked of a champion, in my opinion.
Fair.
So
yeah, that's very fair.
Fair. And to just... Go ahead, Gabe.
Go ahead. No, I was going to move on, but so go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I was going to quote what you say all the time, talking about how Roman Reigns was talking about suffering succotash and to go through that. I mean, because a lot of that was Cena had to deal with that kind of verbiage, that kind of creative, and try to get it over. Tough.
Yep.
Other things we need to move on and talk about in the world of professional wrestling. We like to call it the 3 count here on GKW. Brian, what's number 1 this week?
Also this weekend at Money in the Bank, Drew McIntyre climbed the ladder, got the briefcase, and cashed in on the same night but lost. He became the third male superstar to cash in on the same night, first one to lose. So let's fill in the blank. The men's Money in the Bank cash in was blank.
I was perfectly fine with it. So I think it was fine. Because I think it stays consistent with the storytelling, which, again, it also telegraphs a number of different things to me. Clearly they don't want Cody dropping the title anytime soon, so they don't really have any plans for that. And I'm guessing Gunther's going to be going over here soon at SummerSlam, and he just had a long, prestigious run as the Intercontinental Champion. And it seems like Triple H wants to have these long championship runs. He doesn't want the hot potato thing, kind of that he went through at different times because there were so many different superstars there in the Attitude Era. And then even, it seemed like Cena and Orton were just, throwing it back and forth quite a bit. I think he wants to establish these long championship runs, and Money in the Bank can kind of screw that up. Obviously, there were times where in previous instances, Vince had no idea what to do with it. So he had Austin Theory cash in on a U.S. title opportunity, which was... So I would rather have this than cashing in on a secondary title. Plus, again, it helps with the Drew's being arrogant. Drew's doing all these things. Drew's being blinded by his own arrogance. It helps progress the storyline. And not only that, it also brought Seth Rollins back into the fold with CM Punk, who was the initial one who was so pissed off the night that Punk returned to the company. So it gets a couple of irons in the fire for CM Punk, and it makes this whole thing a lot more interesting.
Was a B plus. That's how I feel about it. It was a B plus. Here's what's funny, guys. The men's Money in the Bank match was 16 minutes and 30 seconds. The women's was 16 minutes and 50 seconds. Same amount of time, and the women was better. The women's and what they did, everything that you saw, all those big bumps was better than the men. Now, having said that,
I don't know. Drew using the ladder as a javelin to knock down whoever was on top. I can't remember who was on top of it right now. When he grabbed it and just hurled it through the air, that was a new one. I hadn't seen that one before.
No, but I thought that the women did a better job of. I mean, everywhere you looked, there was just crazy bumps that they were taking, which surprised me.
That Chelsea table bump was one of the cleanest spots I've ever seen. The way she adjusted and just hit them flush, that was amazing.
Well, I mean, compare that to the Zoe spot, which I don't know how she was walking.
Yeah.
Ooh, God almighty. So I would say a B plus. But having said that, I like the outcome. And by the way, here on GKW, I was 2-0 in predictions. Put that out there, Brian. Put 2-0.
Job well done.
I gave you McIntyre, and I gave you the winner of the women with Tiffany Stratton. But it was, I like the outcome because Drew wins. Okay, great. So Drew's gonna go on. Nope. Here comes CM Punk. Did not expect that. Not as soon as it happened. I just loved how that happened, where Drew McIntyre gets cut off. I also love the idea that Corey Graves got angry with Samantha Irvin for too long of an introduction. Drew McIntyre is going to cash in his Money in the Bank. Samantha, let's go. If you go back and watch it, you can hear Corey Graves pissed off. All right, it's a 30-second intro. We see, and Drew just in the corner waiting for it to be done. And her long introduction. Come on, Samantha, let's go. He's gonna cash it in. Let's go. But I like that because Punk cut him off, and so it's just gonna heat up the rivalry even more so. So I thought it was decent, Brian. I thought it was a B+ effort.
So I think it was unnecessary. We could have accomplished the same stuff if Punk cost him in the match. And then the Rollins thing, I agree with you, Gabe. I thought that was a good touch. And then the promo on Monday was a good way to add to it. But then to have Priest and Money be all right, no, you're good. You still get a shot. It's what are we doing? And that was also unnecessary because we would assume Priest will lose at SummerSlam, then that stiff doesn't really matter anymore. This to me was an opportunity for LA Knight or Jey Uso to finally win a big match. Even if they don't eventually become champion, one of those two having the briefcase for a few months could have elevated them when all those guys do is lose big matches.
Yeah, but if they don't have a plan for it, if they want to have these longer championship runs with Cody and they don't want to cash in on Cody and Gunther, they want to establish him, it just becomes a burden for one of those guys if they have to carry it all around all the time. We were getting impatient with
Right.
Damian Priest before he cashed in. And then it kind of ends up being this curse if you don't really have some sort of creative plan for it. So I think it's better. I mean, losing the Money in the Bank ladder match, it doesn't cost Jey Uso.
Sure.
It doesn't cost LA Knight because they're not tapping out. Their shoulders aren't being pinned to the mat, right? There's a bunch of other guys. There's carnage all over the place. So them losing that match doesn't do anything for them to affect them negatively. But if LA Knight 8 months from now is still walking around with that briefcase, like it kind of becomes, okay, then what are we doing with this guy, right? And I just think that right now they didn't have a plan for any sort of cash in, so it was better to have somebody do this. And again, it adds to depth to the character of Drew McIntyre, because Drew did this to himself. He opened up by making it a triple threat match and not waiting until somebody wins and cashing in, not by being impatient. He opens it up because under triple threat rules, now it's no disqualification. Now you open up the door for Punk to do it. Like, it adds, to me, layers to the Punk and Drew McIntyre story that makes it okay.
Yeah, but here's what happened, though. Yes, you add another layer to Punk and McIntyre, but also it tells me that Triple H does not believe that Jey Uso, Chad Gable, Carmelo Hayes, Andrade, or LA Knight are World Heavyweight Championship material for a year at least. That's what it told me. He's thinking Gable's over because he's dealing with the Wyatt Six, so he's already over. He thinks that Andrade's, finest speed champion.
Speed champ, yeah.
That Carmelo Hayes is a youngster, like a blue chipper down the line. That LA Knight and Jey Uso are already over. They don't need the briefcase. They're already over. They don't need to be champion. That's what that told me. And by the way, if that's what you want to go with, that's fine. But when you don't have a Money in the Bank at all for the next year because Drew cashed it in, that means those other guys are at the same spot. That's what it means to me. It's not a negative. I'm just saying that he doesn't see those other guys for a year from now being World Heavyweight Champion.
Yeah, I agree. And also you're eliminating just easy storytelling of those guys possibly cashing in or those guys possibly running out. And honestly, knock on wood, an insurance policy. If someone gets hurt, hey, let's just cash in and change the title that way and do things that way where, I agree with what you're saying about the triple threat. That did add to it. Luckily that Seth Rollins wasn't crowned the champion 2 minutes prior because the referee sort of did their job or didn't do their job or something there. But I don't know. I just feel like it didn't need that. Like him climbing up and then being caught by Punk could have accomplished the same stuff.
Gabe Neitzel, I just need you to go through the history of the WWE. Also, Brian, I want you to do the same thing. Find me that match in which the referee counted 3 when he wasn't supposed to.
Yes.
This whole thing is supposed to be, well, you know what? If he doesn't raise his shoulder, it's a shoot. Really? Show me that one match in WWE. It's like, well, I counted 3 because he didn't raise his shoulder. I don't think that's true. I think they've always eased up. If there's ever a mistake like that what happened in that match where Damian Priest didn't raise his shoulder, I think they just stop. I think I know wrestling pretty well. I can never remember a time where the referee was like, nope, he didn't raise his shoulder. 3. Here's a world title change that wasn't supposed to happen. That's not true.
Nothing comes to mind. And
nope.
I don't know, that whole situation is still weird where I think Priest was hurt because he's moving his hand a little after. And I've seen people in Triple H sort of in that boat blaming the production and they didn't hit the music early enough. But I don't know what that would have accomplished. That was a very odd situation on Saturday.
Yeah, well, so when I first watched it, I thought because, maybe he dropped them on his head doing the Falcon Arrow.
Right.
It's a move we've seen Seth do 1,000 times. And I watched as many. Okay, no, it looks like he lands on his shoulder. It looks like a pretty standard fall for that move. I don't know, or maybe he just didn't hear the first one and he thought it was, I don't know. I have no idea what happened there. But I don't put any blame on the referee. The referee did what he had to do. And by the way, I liked that in his promo, Seth kind of added, referee made a mistake. That happens. I'm not blaming the referee, right? They didn't completely ignore it on Monday night. There was a little line in there about it.
Yeah.
What if Zapata would have hit 3? What would happen then?
It would have screwed everything up.
No, but I'm just telling you that's what is being said in WWE. It's been going on for a long time. If they don't raise the shoulder, count at 3. Count it as a shoot. He didn't do that. Zapata's smart. because now there's no cash in. There's all of it. It doesn't happen. Just what if the referee was like, you know what? His shoulders was down. Now what happens?
Can you imagine how pissed Phil would have been being under the ring all that time? And it just, nope, sorry. Just got to crawl out under the ring like when it's dark and sneak to the back now because this all got called off.
Uh-huh.
That referee would be fired and be in AEW the next week.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it would be a big announcement that he was there.
Yes. Exactly. I you know what, Gabe? We can't speculate. Brian, I think that Priest, this is what happens when you deal with a veteran wrestler. There might have been a stinger or something.
Yeah.
Which is what you said with the hands. Couldn't feel his fingers or something like that. I just think that he might have blacked out for a couple of seconds. And that's not good in that scenario because you're supposed to kick out.
And I feel bad for him because you can see how pissed he was at the end of the match. And I'm sure he was hard on himself about it. And this is a guy that's been growing, these last few months as champion. We've seen him grow, but very odd situation there.
Mm-hmm.
What do we got at number 2 this week, Brian?
Cameron Hawkins of The Ringer is releasing the Next Up lineup. Comes out tomorrow. It highlights 5 talents from different promotions who are on the cusp of being big stars. His 5, Daniel Garcia, Hyan, Trick Williams, Jordan Grace, and Kevin Knight. Who is the wrestler on the cusp of being a big star?
I did not see this coming because I was critical, very confused why he was down in NXT for so long. But the obvious answer is Braun Breaker. This feud that he's got going on with Sammy right now has been fantastic. And I'm starting to see it more, right? Like he was world champion or the NXT champion for so long. Like it was a long run that he had. Then he drops it. He's like in this weird tag team. It's like, what the hell are they doing with him down there? Do they not believe in him? So that made me start questioning him. I think you're starting to see him be kind of the next big star, I think, of WWE. So who is the wrestler on the cusp of being a big star? I think it's Braun Breaker, and it took us maybe a little bit longer for us to get here, but I think we're there with him.
And the weird part, by the way, I'm not watching NXT weekly. I'd be in and out in some of the bigger shows. Braun was one of those guys you're like, all right, I guess he's ready. He'll be fine. Carmelo is the guy I thought would be a star, and I think those two have flipped on the main roster. Like, I agree with you about Braun, whereas Carmelo has sort of been a letdown since he got called up.
Carmelo Hayes is the same as just some of these other young cocky wrestlers. I thought he was good as a babyface in NXT, and I thought that that's where they were going, but he's kind of a cocky heel, and that's really no different than some of the other guys on SmackDown. So I'm confused by that. But that 5 you gave, though, you gave Daniel Garcia, you gave Jordan Grace. I would say that Jordan Grace, and it's so funny, man, this whole thing with NXT and TNA, this relationship is so interesting. I think that when Jordan Grace's contract is up in January, that's according to Fightful Select, that she's going to be the breakout star in WWE. She'll start off in NXT. She'll be NXT champion. They'll call her up, and she's going to be this powerhouse. And I think that she'll get over. I really do. I think she can have some really great matches. I would say that her.
Do you need to start her in NXT? She's already had the exposure. Like I'm assuming she's going to do a couple more here and there. I think you can debut. I think she can show up at the Rumble, and then she's just on Raw or SmackDown.
CW needs some stars when NXT goes. The old CW network needs a few faces. By the way, this whole thing with that relationship is amazing. I just tuned in just for a second just to see what's going on. First of all, the 3 of us are fans of Ethan Page. We just when he was in AEW, just like, oh, this guy, just a solid veteran. He becomes their champion, and they had like the Rascals from TNA come to NXT on Tuesday night, and the crowd in the NXT arena is like TNA. Like even TNA wrestlers don't say. Even TNA fans don't say TNA. I'm like, this is the smartest crowd in wrestling right now. They knew, and I didn't know until they put the thing on the bottom, like, oh, those are the Rascals from TNA. And the crowd's like, oh my God, they're from TNA on NXT, on the USA Network. And it's just like a long chant for TNA wrestlers. Sean Spears is over. He was never over in AEW. He's over in NXT. I just think that relationship is just very interesting. TNA wrestlers that you don't see come to NXT, and they're over. The TNA wrestlers coming over to NXT. It's really interesting.
Well, on the Jordan Grace point, do you think a guarantee she goes to WWE, or does Tony throw a boatload of money at her?
I think she's WWE bound.
Okay.
I do.
Because I agree she is a star, and like the next one. For me, and I don't know if this has been in the rules, like, is it Ospreay? Like, as we see him to work on the mic more, and we see him on TV every week as opposed to Indy and Japan and stuff, like, it feels like there's a next level for him right now.
Yeah, he's
sure, but he's already one of the biggest stars in wrestling.
No. Well, then my other one, Kyle Fletcher, friend of the show, like what he's starting to do. I think Hood, I know you're a big fan, but I think RIP Aussie Open, because I don't think Kyle Fletcher's a tag team wrestler anymore, and I think there's something more to do with him there.
We slid him that question. No, you slid him that question about Mark Davis. Mark's doing fine, but anyway,
nice guy.
He just moved
on. Mark Jannetty?
Yes.
He just moved on to a tag team I really enjoyed. He was so into his singles run and being part of the Don Callis family. It's funny, the three of us did not mention Daniel Garcia. I'm going to guess why. I think it's because of AEW booking and we don't trust it.
Sure.
I think that's the reason why. Like, it should be Daniel Garcia. Like what we've seen since Buffalo to what I saw, what we've seen on Dynamite and the build of Daniel Garcia, you would think it's him. Can't trust it. That guy is not going to be the heavyweight champion in that company. He's not. He might get over and win matches, but he's not going to be at the tippy top of that company.
What if he's beating MJF at Wembley?
Is that as good as the World Championship?
No, but it could possibly be a step in the right direction.
There's not a chance he's beating MJF.
No?
I don't think so.
I would say no. I would say no. I'm wondering every day, does MJF have creative control? I have not confirmed that. I'm wondering, does he have the Hogan, that doesn't work for me, brother, control in AEW?
Right.
I'd like to know that with this new contract.
If he did, that would be wild and a big mistake.
I'm wondering. So it would be Daniel Garcia, but no. But then you mentioned some others. Who's the others you mentioned?
High-end, she's a female wrestler in Japan and Mexico, and Kevin Knight, who's in Impact. I'm not familiar with either of them. No,
I don't think so. It's funny they didn't mention Julia, the Stardom star. She's going to be something, Gabe. She's going to be.
Well, and she's going to be in NXT here soon.
Stephanie McCour.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Again, like I think NXT, they've got a lot.
Well, I mean, even on this list, like the fact that Trick Williams is on it, like he's over, but I haven't seen like that next level just yet.
Well, that's because we've seen it so many times, even under Triple H now, because you just mentioned with Carmelo, like success in NXT does not translate to success on the main roster. It's not the same. It's something completely different that we've seen a lot of people be able to do, but we've also seen a lot of people fall flat on their face. It's just something completely different.
Brian, where's your guy from NXT that you like, the North American champion?
I wrote him down. Good old Oba Femi. That guy is going to be a WWE World Champion one day.
I like him more than I like Trick Williams.
I 100% agree.
I saw that four-way in which Ethan Page won the championship in Toronto, the NXT championship. And Trick Williams he's this close.
Yeah.
But just so light. It's like they're doing rehearsals. They're doing like a dance. I saw that. It's just like, man, you got to lay your stuff in. You got to be strong. I mean, you look great. You got a great mic skills, but he's this close from being that guy. And everything just seems like rehearsals right now. Mm-hmm. It shows you how young that roster is. Some of those guys are just barely hitting each other. It's like, at some point, man, you got to lay it in.
Yeah, but I think that's fine in the WWE. Like, I think Jey Uso's in that boat of like, so over, gets the crowd going, then the bell rings. You're like, we're sort of missing something here. I think Trick could be that. Oba is one of those guys that right now, I couldn't tell you what he sounds like. I've never heard him on the mic, but once the bell rings, that guy can go.
He's always going to find someone to bitch about in the bloodline, isn't he? What? He's always going to have someone that he's just bitching about from the bloodline. It doesn't matter. Every week, it's going to be somebody different.
Jay's great. He's over with the young people, but the bell rings.
Thanks,
The
Grandpa.
bell rings.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, we're on Grilling JR. This guy.
Did you not see him and his brother at Mania? It could have been one of the highlights of the weekend.
You know, I like him a lot because he's over with the young people, the young star. He's over with the young people. Jey Uso, he's a good hand. He just
next week.
Good hand.
I promise you, next week is. Are we getting tired of Jey Uso? Are we eating too much? Like this? He's going to come out with a no yeet shirt. That's what he's going to show up wearing next week.
I'll get great moment on Monday after the bell ended the match of the yeet and run away. Great moment then. Everything before that, whatever.
I just want you to mark this YouTube video as Jey Uso, a good hand.
That's what he is. He's very over.
R.I.P. to your mentions.
What about Willow? Could we throw Willow on this list?
Yes.
I think that might go to the JHood booking because, like, that is someone that should be a star. We've talked about it a lot. Like, give her that moment. Give her that big win. I even thought she should have beaten Mercedes, 2 months ago or whatever it was at this point. But, yes, like, she could be the face of a company.
She was so close to being Mariah May. It's beautiful in May. She was very that close. At least she was in the finals of that.
Yeah.
But you could tell that she's on the cusp. She's already there. She's had championships. She's in the finals of the Owen Hart women's tournament. So I think they see her as a bright future women's wrestler for AEW.
I agree.
Yeah, I think you can throw her into. I think the women's division is about to really pick up. Between what we have with Britt Baker and the CEO. I mean, the turn last night was fantastic for Mariah.
Amazing.
Like, we knew the turn was coming, but the fact that it happened right away last night, nobody saw coming, and the crowd popped for it. Like, it was huge. Once Mariah, I'm assuming Mariah becomes champion.
Yes.
I think.
Yes.
Yeah, okay,
yes.
All right. I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page there.
It's AEW. You can never rule it out. You don't know.
Because look, as fun as Timeless Toni Storm has been, I don't know how much further we can take that. And I think it's better to end it now on like this high note instead of having it drag out further and have it get dragged down.
Sure.
No. Let it keep going because she had her heel run. Then she started getting cheers. And so now this is a Toni Storm babyface run. And so let it keep going. Like her against Mariah May now is a blood feud. It was the most shocking thing I've seen all year on Dynamite. And that's the way wrestling's supposed to be, guys.
Mm-hmm.
You're not supposed to know. It's not supposed to be in the dirt sheets first. It's like, oh my God, she turned. Nobody had that on their bingo card. Nobody had oh my God.
And the shoe. Tony didn't watch out for the shoe.
Watch out for the shoe.
Yeah, beating her with the shoe was a very nice touch. Very nice touch.
Watch out for the shoe. Yeah, watch out for it to her forehead over and over again.
Uh-huh.
And a separate topic one day will be, are we okay with women bleeding? Oh, boy.
Quickly moving on. What do we have at number 3 this week, Brian?
Also, last night on Dynamite in the men's final, Bryan Danielson beats Hangman to win the Owen tournament, which means it'll be Bryan versus Swerve at Wembley. Did AEW make the right call with Hangman and Bryan?
I am going to say yes, because when Hangman and Swerve had their feud, and then Hangman came back, and then they did that quick little one-off, and it just didn't really make a ton of sense. It still ended up being good. Like, I don't think revisiting Hangman Swerve was the way to go. I mean, plus, Bryan has to win some big matches here, and he finally won a big match to get him into a spot where he gets that main event spot at Wembley Stadium. Like, Bryan, Swerve, main event of Wembley, it's going to be fantastic. I think 100% this is the right way to go. And then we saw Hangman immediately go realign himself with the Elites in last night's show, which furthers his storyline, furthers that part. Like, it ended up kind of weaving into the show very nicely. So I would say 100% they made the right call with Bryan Danielson winning.
I guess that's the case now because, again, and I will be consistent with this, I thought that Swerve Strickland and Ospreay should have been the main event in Wembley. It's not going to happen that way. As a matter of fact, it would not surprise me if Ospreay loses his international championship against MJF next week in Little Rock.
Mm-hmm.
It's the 250th episode of AEW Dynamite. MJF, and again, do you see MJF as international champion? No, but this is the title that Will Ospreay has. So I can see that happening. So because of this, as much as I think it would be cool to see Hangman Page and Swerve again, not at that show. Hangman Page is even deeper into his character now than he ever has been before. To the point where I almost thought he was going to win against Bryan Daniels. Yeah. I thought it was that close. That's how good that match was. So I got no problem with it. Bryan Danielson has never won a championship. The first belt he held up in this company was that Owen belt.
Right.
The first time he's had that. So I guess at that point, soon, guys, we got to talk about who's going to win that.
Right.
Danielson could win, and here's how. If Bryan Danielson, Gabe, was able to win the championship, then here's what would happen. Even though he's retiring, a booking idea is, you know what? I won the championship. That's great, but I'm going to be retiring soon. So whoever's going to beat me, you can have the championship and I'll retire. My next loss will be my retirement. You can book it that way because now you do that on TV and pay-per-view, and it's kind of like, you know what? I'm the champion, but I promised my daughter or my kids that I would retire. So my next loss will be my retirement match. Come beat me if you can.
I think that works perfectly. I think it all ends at Wrestle Dream, which is in the Pacific Northwest, the Seattle area. So in his hometown, I think the perfect way to do that. You talk about little details. Him last night, Martha Hart trying to raise his hand, but his arm still being sold as hurt. Like, he's so damn good. And you talk about like the surprise at the end of the show. I was surprised that Bryan won because I'm just so accustomed to him losing these big matches, and it felt like it was Hangman and Swerve now. So there are a lot of set things for All In, and it's some damn good stuff between Bryan and Swerve, Tony and Mariah, Mercedes and Britt. But then there's a lot of questions right now that like I'm confused at where they're going. We're getting Ospreay and MJF next week, which we all assume would be at Wembley. Pac wins that match last night, so he says he's going to Wembley. And there's still time to tell stories, but overall, I think it was the right call because Bryan versus Swerve will deliver. I agree. Put the belt on Bryan. Give him one last run, however long it might be. But, man, that's going to be a fun main event.
I just assumed that they were going to, he's going to lose it at Winter is Coming on a random Wednesday in Topeka. Like, that's just how I assumed AEW was going to do this. But I do love the idea of Bryan winning. And apparently the reason why they're not doing Ospreay, apparently it was Ospreay's idea to wrestle Swerve because he wanted him to more establish Swerve is over because he hated this idea of, everyone knows that Ospreay's just going to take the title from him. So he's the transitional champion at Wembley. So Ospreay said, screw it. That's not the way we're going to go. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. That's the rumor that's out there.
If that is true, then it shows you how far behind AEW is. Honestly, because that should come from the top. No, this is not your time to win the championship on Long Island, New York. It should be in Wembley. If Ospreay had to tell Tony Khan, I don't want the championship, Swerve should beat me, that's tough. Because we said as a show that Long Island, New York was not the spot for Ospreay to just win the championship because you got Wembley right here. Right. So, I mean, if you're going to put the title on him, it should have been in his home country. But it's not happening now. So now it's Ospreay in some middle of the road match. It won't be in the main event.
No,
it could be Ospreay Pac at this point in time. Who knows?
Right, but think about what that does to the crowd. 2 UK guys.
Yeah, but I mean, at this point in time, guys, it is Daniel Garcia, MJF, in Wembley. That's where they're headed.
I agree. I don't love the MJF one from a strictly wrestling. Like, I'm excited about Ospreay Pac. Like, we know what those two can and will do, especially at Wembley. But, like, Bryan versus Swerve is a good consolation prize to me because I agree. I thought it should have been Ospreay and Swerve. Bryan and Swerve, I'm good with.
Ospreay with no stakes is tough. Ospreay another great match. Ospreay another 7-star match. Okay, but no stakes, though. No championship. Well, it's just...
Well, I mean, we see Daniel Garcia return because again, Wembley's not that far away. Like Wembley's going to be here before we know it.
It's still over a month. It's a lot of dynamites.
Yeah, that's true. It is a lot of dynamites. But do we see Daniel Garcia return next week? That they're overselling this?
Sure.
Oh, it could be 6 months from now, right? And he returns, helps Ospreay retain, and because MJF and Garcia, because of the way that MJF attacked him, that doesn't need a championship. That's a blood feud at this point, right? So it doesn't need a championship. So then the international championship stays with. Stays with Ospreay, and then you have that for the international championship with maybe Pac going over. Who knows? Maybe Bryan Danielson's rubbing off too much on Ospreay, and he's just like, hey, it's fun losing a bunch of matches.
So there are 6 more dynamites before All In. I'm on board with all that. The only issue is, like I talked about earlier, if they're trying to build Garcia into a star, he has to beat MJF at Wembley. Does MJF lose twice over the next 2 months? Like, could he possibly lose next week to Ospreay and then lose again at Wembley to Garcia?
I don't think so.
Yeah, he's big enough. Really? You don't think so? You don't think he's big enough to be able to survive that?
I think he has the pencil. I don't think he wants to lose that often. I think they're going to have to pull out the old disqualification.
They seem to have no issue with guys taking losses. We get Swerve and Okada next week. One of those guys is going to take a loss.
This is for the audience so they know. AEW always hotshot shows. Uh-huh. They are really hotshotting their shows because they want this streaming deal. They want the streaming deal so badly that they're putting pay-per-view, uber pay-per-view quality matches out there so they can say, can we get this deal done now? Look how many great matches we have. And Guts is in a couple of weeks too, by the way.
Yes, that's the following week.
So, they shouldn't have to do all of this and go over the top just to try to get themselves a streaming deal, but this is exactly what they saw what the NBA just got, Gabe. Can we get a little of that? Something?
Well, now they're negotiating with someone that presumably doesn't have those NBA rights, right? Like, and I know Warner Brothers Discovery can still match any one of those deals once they officially get the paperwork from the NBA, but they could have literally billions of dollars now to spend elsewhere if they don't have the NBA.
I just think, Brian, that all of this with AEW, they're cooking. They've had some really good shows. The show I was at on the July 3rd in Chicago, there was a extremely good Dynamite. On Wednesday night was in Calgary. So the last month or so, they've been really putting their best foot forward. They got all of it. They moved the mess out of the way. You don't need a special segment for Private Party here, a luchador there. Move out the clutter. Just give me the storylines I need. This is the most straightforward Dynamites that we've seen in a while, where it's like, here are the 5 things we're focusing on. This is what we're presenting to you.
Yeah, I agree. And it's all building towards Wembley. It's like, hey, this is what we're building towards. Yes, we're getting massive cards. We'll probably be exhausted by the time Wembley comes around. It's not quite resulting in numbers yet, if that's what they're trying to do. It was under 700,000 again last night. I think it's 3 or 4 straight weeks now. But, it's been damn good programming these last few weeks.
Wait, so does this mean we're getting Jericho Joe?
Joe apparently has to go film whatever the show he's on. I forgot.
Yeah, he got taken off the show because he's going to film. Maybe they'll come back around by the time we get to London. That might be the match.
They got Colt Cabana some airtime though.
Okay, so Hook Jericho
again?
No,
I'd rather see trying to figure out Jericho at this point.
I mean, no? I just don't know. Shibata Jericho?
Taz, the human suplex machine. Let's go. One more time.
Taz.
Yeah.
It's Taz, the laziest manager I've ever seen in wrestling. You had Team Taz and never was at ringside. Never.
Yeah.
Not even close.
Yeah, they got it. They got it. We talked about it in the back. They got this figured out on their own. Oh, what do we have in news and notes this week, Brian?
All right, more wrestling free agency news. This one came fast. Stephanie Vacour, who we recently saw at Forbidden Door against Mercedes Moné, well, she's headed to the WWE. Shawn Michaels tweeting yesterday, quote, "Welcome to the WWE family. See you in Orlando." She's a former New Japan Strong Women's Champion and the CML Women's Champion as well.
Well, let me tell you, this is how bad this is. She gets on Forbidden Door, showcases herself to WWE, and does not sign with AEW. She goes to WWE. That's a bad job by Tony Khan. You can't be on my TV unless I know that you're going to stay in Mexico, stay in Japan, whatever. You showcased what you could do on my TV, and now you're in WWE. Oh, great.
She also wouldn't do business this upcoming weekend, pulled from shows, and just dropped her belt as opposed to jobbing to someone. Yeah. Yeah, I'm good. See you guys next time.
Maybe.
Mm-mm. That's
Maybe,
bad.
maybe.
Oh.
Okay, maybe Tony dodged the bullet there then.
That's bad business, bro. You don't do that. The time-honored tradition, pal. You got to lose the match. You can't do that. That's bullshit. You can't do that. I saw her at New Japan. What was it? Strong in Chicago
or Wendy's? Yeah, that or
Windy City Riot.
Yeah.
Windy City Riot. I was so impressed with her at Windy City. I'm like, man, she's gonna be something. And now we're gonna see her there in WWE. The way she did that, that's bad business unless WWE told her to do that.
Right. So apologies to San Jose, who thought they'd be seeing her this weekend at the New Japan show. They will not be.
Can't do that.
Yeah. Elsewhere in news, WWE announced this week they have signed college football boxing play-by-play voice Joe Tessitore. He's expected to become the play-by-play voice of SmackDown and will stay with ESPN.
So how is this going to work? So is this also a sign that they're going to maybe move SmackDown off of Friday nights? Because one of the big reasons that initially when Pat McAfee took his respite from, because he was doing SmackDown and he had to do College Game Day the next day. And it was just, so Tessitore is going to work Friday night SmackDown and then fly into whatever city he's going to be doing, miss production meetings. And I think this could potentially be a sign that, well, either that or Tessitore is going to end up on Monday Night Raw or whatever night they end up putting Raw on. But then you lose McAfee, so I guess he can't do that either. Like I'm excited for Tessitore because I think he's done Monday Night Football. Like this is as legitimate of a sports voice, and especially with the way that they've shot like Raw and SmackDown, like legitimizing almost more of a sport aspect to it. Adding Tessitore to it is a fantastic idea. I just was kind of taking it to the next step of, all right, he usually has a pretty big assignment for ESPN or ABC. They're just cool with him flying in, taking the red eye. Like, what if he gets an assignment for USC and they're in Orlando, right? Like, he's just going to fly across the country. It's going to be complicated, and it makes me think that maybe they're moving off Friday nights.
I think that this could work for Joe because Vince McMahon's not there. Hell, I thought that Jimmy Smits was not bad doing.
He was
Raw.
good. Yeah,
I think he was fine. Even with Vince still being back, I think Vince was in and out at that time. Yeah. But I thought that he was solid, and it just didn't work out after his contract was done. Joe Tessitore brings a presence, as we all know, to the broadcast. There's a Joe Tess way of doing things. When he gets really excited, the voice starts going up, and he has a presence to him. First of all, I didn't know he's a lifelong fan. I think that's interesting. Like I never heard that before. I know he's a boxing guy and a football guy, but he says he's a lifelong fan. Okay, 3-man booths is very difficult. I think Michael Cole will help him along. I think Joe Tess will be fine. Without Vince in his ear, I think that Joe Tess can be able to steady the waters. He doesn't have to call like sports entertainment anymore. Those days are done. But he's got to know the storylines and got to know some of these moves. I think that him as a host, more so than play-by-play guy, would be better, would be best. Because I think Corey has done a nice job as play-by-play guy.
More news and notes add to your viewing. August 8th, PBS new wrestling documentary will debut called When Giants Walked Here. It'll chronicle the history of Mid-Atlantic, the NWA, and independence at Raleigh's famous Dorton Arena.
I'm in.
Yeah.
Oh.
Who's ready to take that assignment on?
Fire up the PBS.
Brother, I'll be right there for you. I'll be glad to give you a report on that.
All right.
Dorton Arena, very usual. You could see the windows in the arena. You could see the windows up top. You always knew what type of weather it was, whether it's rain or sunshine, through the windows of that old arena for NWA tapings. The history of Jim Crockett Promotions will be talked about, I'm sure, in that. Mid-Atlantic, you said. So that's cool. They said that for that building, man, it's one of those old buildings where no air conditioning and no heat.
Oh.
So, neither one. So I don't know if it's like that now, but
just a barn.
They would complain about no heat or no AC. Oh, great.
August 8th, PBS. Finally, news and notes. Jordan Grace told Matt Morgan of Gigantic Pop that her TNA deal is up January of 25. Sean Ross Sapp reporting that WWE, of course, is very heavily interested.
Yeah, we already kind of touched on this. I think it makes all the sense in the world that she goes to WWE. I don't think she needs to necessarily do NXT just because she's already been established there. We'll see how many more appearances she makes before the end of the year with the agreement that they have. But I think that makes a lot of sense for her. She's bigger than TNA.
I would agree. Even though TNA is pretty viable in Orlando. Can you hear the chants of TNA where you are, Brian? In Orlando?
Nah, I haven't quite heard those yet. I was in Orlando this past week, didn't quite hear them. Walked around Universal, didn't find the studio, but maybe one day.
I think it's interesting that the TNA fans know about the NXT fans know about
NXT
TNA.
Fans.
Yeah, know about TNA. I think that's interesting.
All right, boys, what'd you have for your matches of the week?
Well, it starts with Bryan Danielson and Hangman Page from Wednesday on AEW Dynamite. Actually, I thought that the main event with Willow Nightingale and Mariah May, despite the afterbirth, I thought that the match was very solid for the Owens women title as well.
Completely agree with that. I also will throw out from Sunday in Toronto, NXT Heatwave was, dare I say, black and goldish. Like, it was a damn good show from start to finish. A solid 2.5 hours done before 10 o'clock. But Obafemi versus Wes Lee, Kalani Jordan versus Saul Rocca. I know there's been a lot of social media discourse there. Those two were awesome in the ring. Roxanne Perez, always impressive. That show overall, really good.
I also liked the Fatal 4-Way from last night with Pac, Fletcher, Ishii, and Claudio. I thought that was, again, when you have 4 guys of that caliber, it's easy to just kind of, to have high-paced moving action in a Fatal 4-Way. I like the men's Money in the Bank match over the women's Money in the Bank match. Maybe it's just because, again, I'm still concerned about the health of a couple of those wrestlers after. Oh man, just whew, some of those spots. But I mean, they were
that Canadian Destroyer. That one was. Ugh.
But they were all fantastic. Again, the only one that I was really thought was, again, they had the one big botched one from what's her name? That
Zoe
moonsaulted and then from Zoe, where she moonsaulted and caught her neck on the back of the neck on the ladder. That was, but again, then you had some other cool spots, like you had Naomi kind of doing the splits between 2 ladders, and it was. I thought both matches were very creative and in a match that it's hard to kind of replicate. Like in the Royal Rumble, we've seen Kofi do so many things. Like, oh, what's he going to do next? Like, I don't know what he legitimately can do. I thought we were kind of at that spot maybe for Money in the Bank, and they proved us wrong with both Money in the Bank matches this last weekend.
Dragunov against Breakker on Raw.
Yeah.
You guys
again,
like
not
that?
safe for kids, but I did. But I can't get over Dragunov wrestling without knee pads. Like, it just freaks me out, man. Like, you're concerned about the blood from Tony Storm. I'm concerned about the knees of Dragunov.
Well, too. I just think that today you got to have some protection on those knees because I know what that looks like. We continue to give Braun Breakker credit, but he's in these disqualification matches a lot.
Yes, a lot.
We're not a clean finish out of all these, but he continues to get over. That's for sure.
Also, Gabe, you mentioned the 4-Way. Tony Khan announced last night EC is here for the summer with AEW. So, there you go.
Why? Has he ever won a match? Has he ever won a match in AEW?
Summer vacation with all Elite Wrestling.
It's like when Bo Jackson, like, oh yeah, I mean, I'm bored, so I'm gonna go play in the NFL.
Yeah,
I guess. I would agree that the 4-Way, the main event at NXT Heatwave, the way that Ethan Page fell into the championship was pretty brilliant, I thought.
Yeah, it was good. And honestly, when it comes to NXT right now, the world title picture is the weak stuff on those shows. Like, I'm only watching the PLEs, but like, those have been the skippable parts. Everything else is damn good.
That's stop taking a shot at Ethan Page, man. He's over.
It's all of them. It's a shot at all of them. Sorry.
It's a shot. It's a shot at Sean. That's what it's a shot at.
The rest is really
trying
good.
to tell us that Sean can't book. Sean can book a lot of the mid card stuff. Can't book a main event picture. That's what he's telling us.
Sean has an eye for talent, that's for sure. 90s talent, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
If you know what I mean. Now,
If you like the
we're not.
Comment, subscribe, check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/@GoodKarmaWrestling. There you can check out a lot of the cool stuff. Maybe like if you happen to miss it, the interview that JHood did with AEW owner Tony Khan. You can check that out. It's all this great stuff going on over at our YouTube page, youtube.com/@GoodKarmaWrestling. Got some big things that we're building towards. Now we're building towards Wembley. We're building towards SummerSlam, and we're going to talk